answer your question, Nick, I am drinking a Trader Joe's cranberry and lime juice organic seltzer.
Ah, that sounds good. Never had that.
Just a splash of juice. It's like their version of Spindrift.
That's what I was just gonna think. Yeah.
Yeah. How about yins?
I'm drinking a pamplemousse and now a Highland Park 12-year Scotch on the rocks with water.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a gift from my brother for Christmas, I think. Yeah, good gift. Thanks, man.
How is it?
It's a little peaty for my taste, but it's still good. Scotch, which I used to hate until the last year. It's either for me, it breaks down to peaty stuff and not peaty stuff, and it's a little peatier, but it's good. Drinking it. Also, give so few shits about anything right now that it's just fine. So
I think you just added a level of sophistication though, because I could hear the clanking of the ice in the glass, which just immediately exuded this sort of your feet up in a very carpeted mahogany wood office, making power deals.
You know how I do.
I do. That's why I so easily imagined that.
It is like a proper drink glass, but everything else around me and me is not proper.
The art of the deal.
Yeah, unfortunately I have nothing very exciting that I'm drinking, so I likewise I don't have pamplemousse. I have Aldi's grapefruit pamplemousse or La Croix knockoff. Belviv de Vaux.
Is it good?
Yeah.
How does it compare?
I think I would have trouble telling the difference. If I took the Pepsi challenge, I don't think I would be able to tell the difference.
Right.
But that's how Aldi works. All of their knockoff stuff is just almost perfect. They have the knockoff Girl Scout cookies are. I know I would not be able to tell a difference. They're that close.
I fucked some of those up on that last camping or cabin trip. Those were delicious. Do-si-dos, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, you were the one that brought those.
Yeah.
Those were good, dude.
Oh yeah.
I tore them up.
And they tasted just like Girl Scout cookies. I mean, it was if someone had taken them out of the box and handed them to me and been here's some Girl Scout cookies, I would have believed them.
Yeah, I had the real deal a couple months back, and I even remembered that and was like, no, those are dead fucking on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if I've got the chance to buy real Girl Scout cookies, I will, because I'm not gonna take money out of the Girl Scout cookies troops. But they don't sell them all year, or at least they're not available to me all year. So this gets me by from one sale to the next.
Why don't they just sell them all year? I'm sure there are good or whatever answers for that, but it's always why do they do it once a year, it seems?
I honestly don't know. It might be
create demand.
Yeah.
Yeah, novelty, Girl Scout cookie. Yeah, it's a thing. So
Supply and demand.
Yeah. The art of the deal.
Is that what you're doing now?
Aldi's, the Behringer of Girl Scout cookies.
I have another laptop to my right that's black, and it's actually where I'm just configuring the world ruination with the Girl Scouts right now.
Nice.
Well, you're doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
The world is a cesspool right now.
It is. It's a fucking shit show.
I guess we should let our listeners know that we are all social distancing to the highest order. We're all in 3 different locations.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're wondering why the audio sounds shittier than its normal shit level, that is why.
That's why.
We are multi-tracking through Discord.
Yeah.
We
With
cannot
individual
see each other,
audacities running.
and it's weird. I'm envisioning all of us being naked right now in our computer chairs.
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Hell yeah. Except for Nick, who's in a power suit.
Still oiled and naked underneath it, though. Ready to just burst out of it.
Freshly waxed.
Oh, yeah.
Well oiled.
I have the Bateman hair. Haven't cut my hair in a while.
Oh, my hair is insane right now. I put so much crap into it today just to try to get it under control. Because not only is it getting wild, it's insanely humid right now. So it's just a giant afro.
Right.
I'm in a similar boat. Only instead of my hair, it is my beard. It is. It is just. It's like a rainbow of brown under my face. It's just sticking out in every direction. And also on top of that, like I mean, besides like not, taking any amount of care of it, like I don't comb it or even like bother to like sort of like put it into like a normal beard shape. I just wake up and like, yep, that's what it's doing today.
As you should.
Yeah, I mean, even right now, I mean, why would I have bothered to, make myself up to sit in front of my computer and stare at Audacity waveforms?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking at. It's very entrancing.
I had mine minimized. Oh yeah, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
So this episode is just gonna be us staring at waveforms. Were you saying
If
something?
only you guys could see this.
Mine's slightly
See
different.
the things I've seen.
So this is Roy's speech in Blade Runner.
Yes.
There's an outtake that where he adds this to the list of beautiful things that he's seen before he dies.
We need to dub that now. Insert Blade Runner clip here. So, what have we all been digging on during our quarantine lockdown musical adventures?
I don't really have anything I'm digging on, but I have been getting a lot of stuff done. But as far as like, using gear, digging into stuff that I have already even more, I've been doing a ton of that. That's been the bulk of my time in quarantine is work. I almost said going to work. It's downstairs.
Right.
But like working, and then when that's done, just coming up here and working on music and sound and noise and digging into stuff that like I had used and tinker with and sort of got like the general basic idea of, but now I'm really diving into.
Yeah, I feel like it kind of like comes and goes in waves for me. Like at first, like for a few weeks, I like couldn't even look at shit, and then it would get like super like I needed to use it as a release, and that's how it's been a little lately. Like this past week, I didn't do shit, but today I used the ensemble oscillator, the 4 millisecond one, for like a couple hours, and really dug in and had a lot of fun with that. But yeah, it's been.
You mean the Enosc?
Oh Jesus Christ! Yeah.
No.
No, I did say it incorrectly, and it's certainly the Enosc only ever. But the Enosc being what it is, being named the Enosc and not the other name.
Ugh. Can you feel my glare through the internet?
It's even funnier because we can't see you now.
Right?
We just have to imagine it. and like for some reason I'm just imagining like this anime version of Dave, like the eyes are just slits, what I mean? The face is all big, like looming behind Nick as he's saying the word Eno.
Oh, if we could make that happen, that's the next couple years. We'll be able to like have these avatars that are really nice and realistic, that are all fucked up. That'd be pretty cool. But yeah, like you kind of said, Dave, digging into like existing shit and really just like modular. I've been super just using the modular for everything except just a little bit of analog rhythm on the drums, but all modular fun. Just loving the fuck out of both cases lately. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I've been doing a lot of stuff. I have the Deluge and modular hooked up, and right now, that's all I'm using. I mean, I use Ableton to record, but nothing else. And I really haven't turned any other synths at any other drum machines. Like, and even when I'm like, oh, I need to make a drum sample, I need to make this. I've just been making it and sampling it directly into Deluge, and just adding it into it. So
Nice.
like having this sort of like tiny little ecosystem, everything has been pretty tidy and quick.
Right. That's the same. It's been like I can do everything I pretty much want to do with the modular. Like analog rhythm, I can make those drum sounds like drunk and just, like not that I'm drunk at the studio almost ever, but like I'm so familiar with it that it's just easy as how to generate stuff, and especially with the 301 now with like the low latency mode and all the shit he's been adding. He just dropped another bomb last night with like a low level SDK, so people will be able to write their own DSP code and add it, and it'll be able to do like dynamic runtime loading of libraries and shit like that. He's been working on that for like past couple months and just like cracked it basically. So that's super exciting what people are going to be able to do there.
Still on the fence of getting one of those, man. Like I realized during this time that I once again would like to get some form of sampling into the modular itself.
It's been like your never-ending hunt, and yet every time we talk to Nick, it's here's the thing that meets all of your requirements, and you're like, oh, that sounds really cool, but like
it's just so daunting. Like in every demo I look at it's doing something different. It just seems so versatile that it's overwhelming. It's kind of like the Octatrack to me, where like I feel like its limitless possibilities would just be a distraction to me. It would be hard for me to rein in and focus with it because I'm going to get sidetracked by trying to learn it and know all of its in and outs, which seem like near infinite. You know what I mean? Like, whereas my needs for sampling in a modular are pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, there isn't a real straightforward product that exists that does only what I want to do. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I'd have to get something that either is less or more than, and I'm just constantly waffling between what I should be getting. I've ended up selling like every sampling module that I've ever owned over time.
I mean, except for the what's the squabble or squibble? What's the one that starts with an SQ?
Squid sample.
I mean, I think you've had basically every sampler except for that, right?
In the 301, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's new ones that have hit now. You know what I mean? Like we have the Rample.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah.
Which is appealing to me. Except that it's mono and it doesn't do slicing from what I can tell. At least not currently. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm really tempted by the Rossum. But people said that, like, the slicing that it can do is, like, pseudo-slicing and is overly complicated using, like, zones and things like that. And I'm like, yeah, that's a bit of a turnoff. And now the new mini bitbox, that's kind of appealing as well. Because that does everything that I want it to do. And it's smaller and cheaper. That was pretty much my only complaint with the bitbox. I felt like it was too big and too much for what I needed, you know? And now they have a smaller, simpler version. I'm like, okay, that's kind of more up my alley. But that's still pre-order, so I've yet to test it. But it's on my hit list of things to try out in the near future.
But what if you're just putting off the inevitable? Like, I feel like if you had gotten a 301 a couple years ago, you'd be an ace.
I'd know it like the back of my hand by now.
So, like, you just keep putting it off. I mean, I definitely understand what you're saying. It does look like a steep learning curve. It does look like a daunting machine, but at the same time, like, Nick is getting tons of use out of it, so it seems like it's worth the risk.
Yeah, a lot of it too, like, he's put a lot of time into making it a bunch easier to use over time too. So I definitely, like you said, the Octatrack, like, I use a percentage of what it can do, and there are certain things that I really like to do with it. The slicing is definitely one of its more powerful points. Like, once you get it, it's pretty easy to configure. It's not like as easy as Recycle for me still, or like other things I've used like that, but it's still like definitely once you get the curve. Like in the past couple months, I've just broken through where I use it way more than I used to, even just because like that new looping shit that a dude made, and like just some of the stuff that people make that makes it so much easier to use. Like, and he's like, yeah, you should definitely get it. A few sessions, if we would like sit down someday, if we could ever physically do that ever again in life. And then if you just dig into like some of the new videos, I bet you would get it pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's intriguing for sure. And the other thing that caught my eye lately has me hesitant to buy another module for it is the Polyend Tracker.
That's on my list to talk about this evening as well.
Well, let's dive into it, I think. 'Cause,
yeah,
it's kind of appealing to me as an alternative to sampling within modular. The demos that I've seen so far of what it's capable of as like a slicer and things like that, it seems kind of exactly what I want, you know, which I'm not going to be able to get out of a module, unless I was getting like the NerdSeek, but that seems a little more complicated.
The NerdSeek also seems a little cramped to me. Every time I've seen it or used it, I always felt like, man, if this just like sort of like could breathe a little. Everything about like the screen is just like 1 degree too small. The Polyend Tracker is like, oh, that's what I wish the NerdSeek was.
Yeah. So until I get one, I think I'm going to hold off on buying another module. I definitely want to try the tracker. I'm not all that well versed in trackers. It's never been my go-to for writing music. You know, I've always stuck with piano rolls and side-scrolling stuff. But
I'm the exact opposite. Starting with Fast Tracker 2 in like the late 90s, and then going into Renoise, I used the shit out of trackers. It's only been kind of recently that like I haven't been using them as much. And to me, like that clicks with my brain infinitely more than horizontal piano roll sequencing.
See, I've experimented with Renoise a little bit and things like that. It's just, I don't know. I never really jived with it. I appreciate music that is made by it. Some of my favorite, like, fast-paced breakcore type music is all done on Tracker, to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, like, why I've never really dove that deeply into it, I'm not even sure, but...
It really cracked open with Renoise, because there was Octamed, there was Fast Tracker, and there was these sort of, you had a sample, and you had pitch, you had these sort of like primitive ways to manipulate a sample, and then the crux of it was that interface. You know, you've got these different channels, and things are scrolling down vertically, and that was the main drive. Renoise, though, introduced so many other dimensions to it. And just even the way you can like fuck with samples and fuck with automation over time and all these different things. Renoise nailed it. So it seems like the Polyend Tracker. I mean, I know that it's more than Renoise in a box, but the fact that it's even that close is very appealing.
For some reason, like their interface just seems less scary to me than Renoise. Like just watching the demos, I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing, and it makes sense, and I understand it. Whereas most of the time, I've looked at anyone using Renoise or any other tracker, and I have no fucking clue what I'm looking at.
Renoise did sort of make their interface a little bit more friendly over time. Because at first, it really was copying all of the tracker sort of paradigms. So, I mean, things were in hex. You had to kind of learn how to read it in the way that, like, it was kind of like using Unix. At first it's daunting, but at some point you can look at like inode information about a file and automatically figure it out. But Renoise had that sort of just here's a bunch of numbers and letters and dashes. But over time, yeah, I think they did a pretty good job of making it a little less obtuse to get into.
Well, I'm looking forward to dipping my toe into that world finally. And I haven't pre-ordered it, but and I guess it's too late for that. The first orders just started shipping this weekend, from what I read. I don't know how long it's going to be for the next batch. I know this first batch is completely sold out and mostly going to influencers and the like. But yeah,
I mean, I guess there's a part of me that's also like, I kind of hope a bunch of these end up on Reverb. Like, hey, this is a great new thing, and trackers aren't for everyone.
No, I think it's inevitable.
Which is exactly what's happening with the Pulsar 23 right now. I was actually going to bring that up in a point, so it kind of ties in with something I was going to say. Not to branch off of the Polyend just yet, but I think it's related. I think it's an overhyped, flashy new toy that like all these so-called YouTube influencers and such are going to buy just to ride the hype train and get their video out there first. And people are going to ride that hype train and buy them all up. But yeah, it's not going to be for everyone, just like the Pulsar isn't for everyone. A lot of people have been receiving their orders over the last 3 months, and already multiple units have popped up on Muffs and Reverb for sale. They're selling quickly. I bought one of them also because I ran out of patience to get mine directly from Vlad. A lot of people posting them up with not much of an explanation other than, just decided this wasn't for me. And like I saw people commenting on Instagram and even on Muffs about how it's kind of a complicated machine that you have to patch from scratch, you know, and it's like it seems to cater towards the noisier industrial soundscape more than any other genre. And it's like, well, no shit. Like, I don't think Vlad ever said otherwise. You know, it's like it's every demo that has come out since he announced it has been like of that variety. It's definitely a machine made for someone who wants to sit there and meticulously craft strange rhythmic noise, you know, like
Right.
that's why I'm so excited for it, you know. But people that are getting it and wanting to produce like a techno track with it, it's like, why? There's dozens of machines out there that would do that way more efficiently, whereas the strong points with the pulsar are things you're not going to find in those machines when it comes to like making strange, you know, rhythmic, noisy, hard stuff. So I don't know.
I can imagine a scenario where someone's seeing these videos, looking at this, reading the specs, and all that, and go, I can make a slightly different 909, or I can make a slightly different 808, and this will be that thing that sounds slightly different than the standard issue machinery, without realizing that that is not what this machine was made for. You know, this is not going to get you that slight variation of a popular sound. This is a totally different machine.
Yeah, if you're buying that thing to go normal, you're definitely fucking up. You know, and it's nowhere near like get a TR-8S and be done with it.
Exactly. Yeah, I think too many people are going to be buying it for what they imagine it can do and not for what it is advertised as doing. And,
Right.
I think we're up to number around 1,200 now that has shipped out. So that's a fair amount. How many of those are going to pop up in the next couple months? I'm curious to see. As used, you know what I mean? Secondhand market.
Yeah.
My pre-order number was in the 1,600s range, and I was told that's still like 3 to, I think, 4 months out. So I ran out of patience and bought one of these secondhand ones that should be arriving on Tuesday, if I recall. So I'm stupidly excited to get my hands on it finally.
Nice.
Next episode we do, I'll probably have a lot to say about it. But yeah, I feel like the Polyend is probably of the same type of machine. You know, it's people are getting swept up in the hype around it. I guess that's influencers doing their job. You know, like they're.
Yeah, I think they're both machines too that you're gonna probably love them or hate them. You
Yeah.
know, there probably isn't too much middle ground, especially with the Pulsar. Like it's gonna be your thing, and hopefully you're not trying to do like a whole like Ibiza beach techno house song with it, like just using it for like that one weird thing, or maybe gonna sample the shit out of it or something.
Or I kind of hope maybe they are, and then I'll get into that music.
I just said that and would love to hear that.
Yeah. So anyone out there who gets one, that is your challenge.
That's your challenge, Greg.
Yeah, great. When you get one.
No. Yeah, I've already seen criticism online of the Polyend, people saying like, complaining about its limited memory and this and that. And it's like this isn't a workstation. This isn't an MPC. This is a tracker in a box. Like it's meant to be used as such. But
and again,
we'll see.
I mean, that's why trackers were popular in the 90s when a computer didn't have a ton of memory and didn't have the sort of capabilities that it has now. You could use a tracker to create really interesting stuff with very limited resources. So, I mean, to look at it and go, well, it doesn't have all of these features that I'm accustomed to now, is like, well, again, that's not what a tracker was. It's not what a tracker excels at. This is the wrong instrument for you.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's kind of what's appealing to me about it. Is it's limitations. Like I feel like that's what I need right now. Like the way my brain is working at this moment. I need something that kind of funnels me down a path that I can explore. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I just get overwhelmed by all the different paths I can take.
And that's the thing about the 301 in a way, too, is it's actually a lot more limiting than you would think, because you run out of resources more quickly than you would expect in some ways. And it's like, there isn't like as much, it's not even nearly close to like a Max MSP or something like that, but there are a lot of different things you can do with it. But I do It's just recently that I've started to like enjoy the limits of that module. I'm thinking like, oh, okay, like I can use this much, and you can load like a shit ton of wave like audio memory and stuff like that. But it's definitely limited. Like once you start loading effects, like you're done. You're gonna not have as many delays as you would maybe, not more than a couple of them. So it's kind of nice in that regard. And like certain stuff, like it can do wavetable stuff, and I think it sounds great, but I still don't use it for that a lot, just because like I have other wavetable oscillators that are just sitting there that are so much easier to do configure, or there's no configuration to get it to do that. So it comes down to like the quick saves I use a lot if like I develop something, and it just after a while you end up like doing the same like stuff, or it becomes very intuitive to know how to like tie one of the internal envelopes to something or modulate it. And it's really like the ability to modulate it is the real like awesome point. Like just being able to modulate like every control and having all those like 12, 16 inputs is the beast.
And I'm sure at this point there are commands that you're going to use often, and you're going to get muscle memory and intuition to be able to just quickly do that without thinking. Yeah, there's some fringe stuff that's on the end that maybe you have to like remember remember how to do it, but like the stuff you're going to do all the time, you're eventually going to just out of habit do with them. I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is because like I was talking to Russ from Evaton. We were talking about Deluge. He also has one, and at one point he called it the EMACS of groove boxes.
Oh yeah, he said that to me the other night. Yeah,
and the second he said that, I was like, that is 100% correct. As a huge fan of EMACS, but there is that thing of if you try to just absorb absolutely everything about EMACS or the Deluge, you're going to be overwhelmed. You're not going to remember everything.
Right. Do
the stuff that you do all the time, and know that there's this stuff on the edge that you can do, and maybe you don't remember it off the top of your head, or you might have to look that up, or it might take you a second to remember. But the bread and butter, nuts and bolts stuff that you're doing all the time, that is intuitive, and you are just going to like, after using it for some amount of time, you're going to start flowing with it. You're going to start not thinking about it. You're just going to do it.
Yeah, kind of like just like an MPC too. Yeah. Like it's the same thing. Like you'll never use all the shit in there because any more of the modern ones too are just fucking loaded.
That's what's appealing to me of the tracker. It looks like something that I could easily, quickly find my flow with, you know what I mean, to do just a few things that I want a sampler for. Like I don't use samplers too much these days. Like even when I end up sampling my own stuff, I get frustrated that chunk of audio is now frozen in time, and like it doesn't feel like alive anymore. It feels like I can't tweak it. Whereas when I'm doing things live in the modular, like even something as simple as like a hi-hat, I can have it mutating in so many different ways in real time, that you can't really do with a sampler.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, at least with most samplers, you don't have that much flexibility with it unless you start like using granular functions and things like that, Whereas like the Polyend, it looks a little fluid, like I can sample things right from the modular into it. It seems like I'll have options to mangle it and sequence it, in a way that's satisfying to me and doesn't feel frozen in time. It doesn't feel like dead audio to me. It feels like something that is still very much alive and I can sculpt with it. That's what I want to achieve with, you know what I mean? If that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. I think especially the way that they have like the control lanes set up, which is much nicer, a different experience than what I remember from like a fast tracker or something like that, or a mod tracker back in the day. And like the way you can just like quickly have like curves that go from different values and like assign shit on multiple lanes. Like it seems like you were saying earlier, like just a nice fucking interface for using trackers. Because I was the same. I never liked trackers. I started to use trackers and was like, cool, I'm going to be a DJ because fuck this. And then it was only like step sequencers that were like, oh no, step sequencers on hardware. You can do stuff with this. And that's still what I'm stuck on. But it's the same thing.
I've always been a big visual person. Like the first program that got me way into it was Reason, and Recycle and Rebirth and shit like that because of the interface. It was very visual. It made sense to me. It didn't look like a spreadsheet like a tracker
Right.
does. You know what I mean? Like I looked at that and I was just like, what the fuck? And yeah, I mean, I understand.
How dare you?
Didn't want my music making experience to remind me of working on a PowerPoint project. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. I remember when I was growing up too, my friend like Chris could just like fly on Fast Tracker, and he would just make like the best fucking music because he was already a piano player and shit. So it was like, I'm done with this. I'm obviously broken for this program compared to him. So,
but yeah, it's $600. So like the investment isn't too terrible. You know, I think that's a pretty fair price for what you're getting.
Yeah, for what it does, that's a. I was actually expecting it to be more once I saw all it could do.
Right. So it was, yeah, like that's like what, the same price as a Digitact.
Yeah.
And it's
way actually less.
More versatile.
Digitact's more now. Yeah.
No shit.
It's gone up in price a little.
Yeah, the pre-orders are supposed to start shipping in August, I guess, for the next like major batch that isn't dedicated to influencers and people like that.
Real quick, Digitac is now $750.
Damn.
That's kind of insane to me.
Yeah, same here, because that's way more than what I paid for mine.
A Digitac to me still seems like a device that should be sold for like $499 tops.
Yeah, I agree.
I didn't want to derail this conversation into Digitac.
I'm just trying to compare, you know, to other small sampling units that are out there right now that aren't like full-blown workstations or whatever. But
I just like those fucking keys on the Digitac. That's the main thing I miss, is those fucking keys. They were just nice.
Yeah. I missed it turning on.
Yeah.
That was cool when it turned on.
Yeah, when it actually worked and was reliable for a couple days. So you mentioned, Dave, you were going to do a bunch of DIY stuff and you haven't yet. What was it you were going to do? The LXR?
Yeah, the LXR, which does actually have a relationship with the Digitac, because this was when Digitac did not have any way to save, and it was over a year of not being able to save anything. So I started looking around.
That's right.
Yeah, remember, like, there was no SysEx dump, nothing.
Fuck.
So I was like, I got frustrated. I'm like, I've been working with this too much, and I really paranoid about losing all of it. So I just started looking around, and the LXR was something I'd used yours, and so yeah, I bought the kit of it. And it's been sitting in my basement.
Did you get the 60 knobs expansion?
I didn't. I got the CV expansion, and I got the Erica metal enclosure for it.
Nice.
And so when all of this quarantine started, I was like, this is it. I'm gonna actually buckle down, fucking finish this thing. I still want to do it. But when work is done, I'm like, oh, what do I want to do? I want to go. I just want to turn all these machines on that are already built or already working. I've been having a hard time getting motivated to do DIY stuff during this. But yeah, this is this quarantine or shelter in place. That is one thing I've been really kind of disappointed in not getting done. Especially the LXR.
Oh yeah, you'll love it. Yeah. I had that little burst of like activity where it was like a couple weeks in. I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on this, and it felt great to build that Surge VCFQ because I wanted it for so long, and it was just like super satisfying because it worked perfectly. There were no issues or anything. It was a fun build, and that got me going enough that I put the Strackel Brulu together, the Thonk one, because I was like, okay, I want this, and those are definitely like, I'm so glad I built both of them. Should have built them earlier because that filter is probably like, if I had to pick one filter in my modular, that would be the one I would keep. And the Strackel is just, as much as I expected to use it for the extreme stuff, I really like just using it just to saturate some shit and like give it a little bit of like, it's great with the piston Honda, kind of reduces some of the thinness and gives it a little more weight for some patches.
I'm the exact same way with mine. The same path too of like, this is going to be my fucking, I can just have a noise set that's just this. And
right.
the noisy end of it is a little one note. It's actually kind of disappointing if you get it for that squelching, because it kind of just makes everything sound like that. But if you turn it down a little bit, or you have like a little more deft hand with it, and also just fucking with the inputs and input and output levels is way more, is really satisfying, and gets like you said, just turns like something kind of bland and just gives it that beef that it didn't have before.
Yeah, because that's what I built it and was like, oh shit, it makes like this crazy sound. And then in half an hour, I was like, wow, that's the crazy sound it makes. Like, this is kind of a fucking like softy here. And then patched it up again like the next day and was just using it just run shit through. And I'm like, okay, this is a little different than I expected, but is still very close to the mark for like making satisfying sounds come out. You know, just another thing to dirty stuff up and running it like post and before the Optodist and dark matter. Now it's like, okay, I have like a nice like feedback of or like matrix of like distortions to fuck with, which has been super super awesome to have a little more color in there.
That's awesome. And it was a kit that you can check off your list.
Yeah, you have 2 kits down of like the backlog, so there I think 4 or 5 left now, and some of them are like like that was it the Rogue that Moog clone?
Oh, the
VCF,
Raging Bull.
where it's just like yeah, exactly. Where it's like based on your feedback and other shit I've heard, it's just like I don't know if I never build that, that's one I'll be cool with just not building.
It was a simple build, so I don't really consider it like a huge waste of time. That may have been the nail in the coffin of me ever giving Moog any kind of like consideration. I even went into it knowing like, well, this is a clone, so maybe it does something a little bit different. Maybe this will be the thing that kind of turns me around. I gave it like a month.
Well, there's apparently like some shit in there, and we have the earliest ones. That's really easy to fuck up or flawed, and there have been like 4 revisions of that module since the ones that we got. So I was reading like a build guide because I was like, oh, how hard is this thing? And the one was like, yeah, you might get this part faulty or like fuck this part up. It's very common to do that, and people think it's broken or it's just like not that good. And I'm like, oh, that sounds like, I don't know, like that again just made me like not want to fuck with it compared to
that might explain it, yeah. Because when me and Dave built those, like he didn't listen to his yet, but I put mine through its paces like that day. And like I compared it to the demos that I heard of it and to the original that it's supposed to be a clone of, and I was like, this sounds nothing like that. I was like, this sounds like kind of trash. And I told Dave, and then like he got back, he's like, yeah, this is very underwhelming. I'm like, yeah. I think it lasted like all of a week, and then I flipped it.
Right now, I just really want to finish that Resonant EQ by the end of the summer sometime, and then one of the System 100 envelopes I have, because I just want the full pair, and especially now that I have the System 810, which like just kind of begs for those clone envelopes to pair up with it as modulators, because the one works fucking fantastic with it.
How is it going to be a rough build, or is it a pretty straightforward build?
I looked through the guide and it seemed as straightforward as the other random source one that I built, which was like that was an easy, very straightforward, well documented build. And everything was like individually bagged by Thonk, so they made it so you didn't even have to like check out which resistors were which. So it was pretty simple.
Have we sung the praises of Thonk yet?
Oh man, just for bagging those fucking resistors is worth like everything right there.
Not having to separate those out by those tiny little stripes of color.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna get motivated. I mean, I feel like my collection of neuroses are changing over time over this quarantine. How shitty I was feeling 2 months ago is different than how shitty I'm feeling now. And I don't know, maybe I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and just be like, I'm just gonna grab a soldering iron and just put this together.
That's how it was for me. I got this like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna fucking finish this one thing. I'm gonna finish the fuck out of it just to like escape everything right now. And that's what it was. It was out of nowhere.
Maybe I have that to look forward to. A mild psychotic breakdown where I start building things. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, dude. I didn't want to dip too into psychology, but like hearing you guys describe that type of like impulsiveness, it reminds me of what I try to fight fairly often with my bipolarness. You know what I mean? Like that's how I'll function. Like I'll just wake up one day and just I don't know. I just have this like surge of this need to get shit done. Things that have been in the back of my brain are just causing me unnecessary anxiety. Like I'll just scrub the whole house from top to bottom, and I'll fucking do this, I'll do that, just all these things and get shit done.
Wow, we're really getting wildly off topic here. Welcome to
it's on topic.
Welcome to our synthesizer show, where we discuss all of our problems.
Everything's different.
True.
It really is though. Like before this started, I had very clear goals of what I was trying to work on musically.
Yeah.
Those have all gone out the window over the last 3 months. Like, I'm not thinking the same way. I don't have the same goals creatively. For a while, kind of like you were saying, Nick, I couldn't even really think to bring myself to work on music. Like, it was just, it seemed insignificant to some of the other things that were weighing on my brain.
That's a perfect word for it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It just didn't seem like my top priority. But over the last couple weeks, there's been like a rekindling of creativity in my brain, and I find myself going down paths that were definitely different than what I was trying to do 3 months ago or 6 months ago. I find myself more on a like industrial path again, fast tempo, rhythmic noise driven, more, I don't want to say simple, but less overly complicated rhythmic structures. Like, you know what I mean? Like, kind of scaling it back. I want to make the sounds more interesting, but the rhythm's a little simpler. Like, I don't know, just all these things that are like complete opposite of where I was going a few months ago. So it's interesting to see what this has all done to my brain and is kind of pushing me in a different creative direction.
I absolutely understand what you're saying, and I've sent you guys things I've been working on last couple of weeks, and when I listen to them, it almost doesn't sound like something I made.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I'll listen to them again the next morning and go, I remember making this, but this isn't what it sounded like while I was making it.
Which is like where I'm at too. I was like Greg said, I was like going down a certain path, and I'm like, oh, this path makes sense. I'm like working on this, and then this stuff has changed it to where it's like, oh no, this is actually the only thing you can work on is this different thing, and it's the only thing, and it's kind of like a different thing than I'm used to hearing. But it's also kind of refreshing because it's like very simple to approach it, because it's like, oh, this is the only thing you can do right now, so just don't think about other shit. And it's some interesting stuff so far. A little simpler, like Greg was saying, kind of still driving. There's some like real relief that I'm feeling from making that stuff. So as long as I feel that relief, I'm going to keep trying to flow through that or whatever.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm feeling too is like, and this might not be the right word, but I feel like there was a subtlety that I used to try to strive for that is, I feel is just gone.
I think maybe like ornamentation, you like less like maybe simpler brush strokes, you know,
Yes.
like less like fucking fanciness to some shit. And that's kind of how I've been feeling too. Like, just like, I'd rather hit you in the head with the hammer than kind of like, I don't know, I'm failing an analogy right now, but like being as direct as possible.
Yeah, that is exactly how I've been feeling, is that thing of like that subtle, that nuance. Like when I feel leaning towards that, I feel like that's, or, you know, like I feel like it's just like, do we even have time for nuance anymore?
Dude, that's the fucking feel of it. It's like, do you even like have time to fucking do this? That's weird.
Yeah, no, that nails it, Dave, I would say. Like, like I was saying, I was trying to not make things so overly complicated. You know what I mean? I think time is a big issue there. Like, I feel like I kind of need to create just for my own personal sanity. I'm not going to get lost in all the over complications that my brain can do. I want to create something that is rewarding to me and more immediate, you know, and not just bogged down into details too much, but like something that is just more satisfying on the surface. Yeah, I feel that for sure.
We had a list before we started talking.
Yeah, my list kind of branches off from what we were saying there, though. Like the whole not leaving the house for 3 months and being on edge and worrying about myself and everyone I give a shit about getting sick and whatnot. Has my brain going down some weird paths. And,
for fucking sure, man.
Yeah. One of those paths kept making me think about my old methods of working on shit. No clue why, because I haven't worked on music like that in a long time. But I was just kind of getting nostalgic for like when I used to just sit there and, you know, discover things, you know, like I didn't really have a goal at first when I would work on music. When I was just getting into it, it was just an experiment, and hopefully would stumble across a happy accident along the way. simpler times, you know,
Right.
just venturing down avenues using whatever cracked software happened to come out that day or whatever new VST came out. And thinking about like those old ways reminded me of an old process I used to use, which kind of made me buy two purchases. It was the only two things I've bought during the last 3 months, and that was Rossum Panharmonium module and Propeller Head's Reason 11.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. What?
Yeah.
Reason.
Weird, right?
I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's two things that's unexpected. A, that you bought it, and B, they're on 11?
Yes. And
I mean, I dropped out at like 1 or 1.2 when they added the green synthesizer.
Yes. 1.2 was my favorite for a long time. That was before things got off the rails. 1.2 was my jam for a long time. Eventually, I got into, I think it was version 3 or 4, whatever one introduced the Screamer distortion module.
Right.
That kind of convinced me to upgrade, because that's, in my opinion, still a great distortion unit. And then after that, just kind of fell off track. I can't remember if that was 3 or 4, but I didn't upgrade really since then. I knew it was getting a little bloated, a little weirder. I knew things like Rewire are now gone, which is strange to me, and things like that. But yeah, because I guess Rewire isn't 64-bit compatible.
Oh.
Which sucks, because like Rewire worked. It did what it did well.
Yeah, it did.
Now, can you just load VSTs directly into it now?
You can. I'm not sure why you would want to, but you can. And you can also, in version 11, load Reason as a VST in your DAW. Which, that was one of the main things that was appealing to me to give this a go. Because I was sitting there remembering like the days when I would just work in nothing but Reason for hours on end, day after day. There was a point in time where I knew it like the back of my hand, you know? The front, the back, I knew where to plug shit, what I liked, what weird combinations to make strange things. It can only be loaded as a VST3, which the DAWs that I still use, because I don't like upgrading, can't do. So I haven't even had a chance to try that yet, and that was also how I discovered that Rewire doesn't exist anymore. I was kind of going crazy trying to figure out how to rewire this thing, and they're like, yeah, that hasn't existed for years. I'm like, oh. So, but yeah, like the first two non-releases for Prometheus Burning were like almost entirely Reason. Like those were just all Reason experiments. That was the Lamer demo and the Cathode albums, which somehow made it around the SoulSeek networks and now.
Yeah, I think I have CDs of those.
Yeah, dude, I don't even remember how many I made. My brother Sam brought this up the other day while we were bullshitting. He was talking about how he's like collecting vinyl now, and he has also a CD collection, and he found like the old demos of my stuff that I gave him like 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And he was like reading them off to me. He's like, oh yeah, here's the Lamer demo with the cover. Here's Cathode with the cover. Here's the Valve Cycle demo you gave me. I was like, holy shit! Like these were all Reason tracks for the most part, and I was like, that's cool that people still have those. Those were the ones that were like my first like. I felt like I achieved a vision, with like an album, like that was the precursor to like the actual releases that came later with Nikki and stuff like Influenza and Beyond Repair and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. But like that was mostly me just fucking around in Reason. Like I loved the program. So I was kind of excited to see what has changed and get back into it a little bit here with version 11, because it seems to be like a defining version, like there's a lot of things that are new in it. They finally implemented something that's kind of like a algorithmic drum sequencer. It's just called Beat Map, and it uses weird graphical maps that you can adjust the the like fill ratio for each. It's basically mutable instruments grids
right
in Reason. and it's a little more versatile because there's like more rhythmic selection and sweet spots that you can find, and you can lock it. Like you have your 4 channels, which typically is just like, you know, your kick, your snare, your hat, whatever. But you get the 4 tracks, and like if you find an algorithmic spot that you like for, like, say the kick, you can lock that and then switch the map around for the remaining ones that are like still unlocked. So you can do some real interesting shit with it. Really appealing to me. That and like the VST options were the main reasons why I bought it. And I was super excited to get back into it. And like I spent maybe 2 nights dicking around with it. And it's just insane to me what they have done to this program.
In the good or bad?
Bad? It's somewhere along the line over the last like decade. It seems like propeller heads decided that they didn't want Reason to just be what it is, which was an instrument. It was a rack of hardware emulations.
Yeah.
It always had a thin sound, but like it was a great interface. The instruments were versatile. Good shit. I remember every time I would upgrade my little Pentium 133 box to like the next generation, and like it would be able to, I could add like 3 more instruments in my Reason rack at a time. I was like, woo, you know, like shit's getting complicated now. Like I got like 6 Maelstrom synths in one patch. Wow, you know. But you know, obviously times have changed. The fundamentals of Reason is still the same. Like all the bass instruments are still there. It's still on the thin sounding side of things, but like they've added a lot more instruments, and you have rack extensions now. That element of it, like that mechanic, is great. Still is, always was, but it's buried under so much bloat now, and like weird things that don't need to be there. Like it's trying to be a full-blown like DAW, and my only question is why? Like that was never what Reason was strong in.
They almost were actively like the opposite of that. There was like there was Cubase, there was Logic, and Ableton was starting to like gain this sort of like foothold, and Reason was the we're not going to do that. This is something different, and it existed outside of a DAW.
Yeah, it was virtual gear. You know?
The sequencer was nice and basic, you know, and that was cool. You could do your automation lanes, things like that. It wasn't overly complicated. If you even wanted to use the sequencer, like most of the time I would open it up in Cubase or FL Studio or even like Audio Mulch as, you know, Rewire. Or maybe it was Plug, Badul. I can't remember. It was either Audio Mulch or Plug, but I would open it up in one of those as, you know, just a Rewire instrument. And it worked. I was able to hop in, do what I needed to do, and get shit recorded. Maybe I'm just an idiot now. I don't know, but like I couldn't even figure out how to like record chunks of audio in there. Like things were just convoluted. It auto routes things to places you can't see, to a mixer that's hidden in some other fucking panel. It tries to auto group things in weird ways. Like
it's lost its way.
It's lost its way hardcore, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure people still do great things with it. People, I'm sure, are very passionate about it. But like, it was just annoying to me. It's not the Reason that I remember at all. And I feel like its strengths would still be just as an instrument. Like, I almost wish you could just get like a 1 rack, like Reason Lite thing. Like, I think they do offer a Lite, but it's just like limited in like your instruments and things like that. But it's still you're dealing with like tons of bloat that you don't need. I was messing around with the Rex player, loading some of my old, you know, Rex files that I created for it. Still compatible. They still load, and the Rex is still the Rex. It's still great at what it does.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So like, I don't know, man. Like, I wish I could just load the instruments and not have to worry about all the weird things that they tried to work into this to make it a DAW.
That's a bummer, because like if they had stuck with their original idea and evolved down that path instead of going, well, how do we compete in the marketplace? The 2020 version of Reason that could have existed could have been astounding.
Yeah, is it just like too tempting for them to add another feature? What else are the dev teams going to work on? Or like, oh, fucking Ableton does this, just like Logic did, where that's
That's the
like
thing.
practically just like Ableton now.
The sequencer is like a super cramped, unintuitive version of Cubase meets Ableton now.
Right.
Ooh.
And it's like, why? Like,
Yeah.
it's trying to be way too much. I don't know who asked for that. Like, I don't know. It's strange to me.
It may not
I'm
be
sure I
someone
could learn it over time, but like, it wasn't inspiring me to bother. It was just kind of like, I feel like you'd need 3 monitors just to make things fit in a way that didn't drive me insane. Like the way it like auto compacts things are tucked into this unseen panel on the right. You got your sequencer that's all cramped into the bottom. You can't really see your rack and your sequencer at the same time. So you'd need like one monitor dedicated to your rack, the other for like the mixer, and then the other for the sequencer. It's just like a clusterfuck.
we need to make the the people make the not my president shirt. We need to make the not my reason shirts.
Not my reason.
10 other people that agree with us.
I wish they would just offer some of their instruments as VSTs. Like if you could just get like the Rex, things like that, or the Maelstrom. I would prefer that and just put that in my DAW instead of fucking around with like being locked into this weird. I don't even know what to call it. This weird world now that is Reason 11. Yeah. So yeah, that was a kind of a bust. I realized that my nostalgia for Reason is long dead. It's never going to be what it was for me.
So you're not using it at all anymore? You just gave up?
I mean, I'm going to try to keep using it to some extent. I spent the money on it, so
Right.
I'm going to try to get my value out of it. Should I segue into the Panharmonium before we deviate too far off?
I would like to hear about the Panharmonium.
So, this is the first Rossum device that I've ever owned.
We've talked about Rossum devices in the past, mostly in the form of reviewing NAMM videos. Have any of us had any Rossum stuff before this?
No,
I haven't.
Not. No? I'm surprised. I figured one of you two would have had, like, one of his samplers or something.
Nope.
Huh. Okay, alright. I'm the first of the crew to get a Rossum device, I guess.
That's true.
So, yeah, I bought the Panharmonium kind of with, like, a specific purpose in mind. And I guess to elaborate on that, I need to harken back again to the time that I was thinking about when I was working on the Beyond Repair album for Prometheus Burning. I had a shit ton of sounds that I had recorded when I was working on that, like found sounds and stuff that I recorded through my shitty microphone at the time of, like, metallic scratching, banging on metallic objects, things like that. I had a whole library at that point of sounds that I was trying to work into the album, and I kind of couldn't. I couldn't find the right way to mix them in. They were all monophonic. My microphone sucked, and they just sounded like someone banging on a pot into a cheap microphone.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I was struggling to make it sound like I had the sound in my head. Like, I was kind of at a standstill with it, and I knew there was, like, sample libraries out there that kind of already did what I wanted, but I didn't want to go down the, like, mainstream sample route, really. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. I was trying to make my own sounds. So I had, like, an aha moment where I started to route these sounds through vocoders and certain reactor ensembles and native instruments effects like spectral delay and things like that. And I was able to kind of resynthesize these flat, one-dimensional organic sounds and mutate them into something was more three-dimensional and unrecognizable, blending, like, organic percussion with the, like, electronic chaos that I was already had recorded for this album. So that was something I did for Beyond Repair. I know wasn't like all that original. I'm sure people have been doing that long before I was, but it was a big moment for me. You know what I mean? Like, I was able to mutate these sounds and make them sound more electronic. And I used that method really heavily on the Retribution record too. And I kind of stopped doing it for a long time. Like, I just kind of fell off track with that type of fucking around. But recently, like, I was making sounds in the modular again. Some metallic, like FM metallic percussion stuff, some from my old sample libraries. And I found myself wanting to, like, be able to do that again. But I don't have any hardware vocoders, and I'm not really using software right now, so I was kind of, like, stuck. And I found myself starting to look into, like, hardware vocoding, things like that. Didn't really find anything that I wanted, or find anything that, like, went into the spectral domains like some of those programs did that I used to. Totally forgot that the Panharmonium existed. And, like, I just kind of stumbled upon it in Modular Grid, and I was like, oh yeah. I was like, this thing kind of does exactly what I'm looking for something to do. It even has a drum mode, which is, it's like able to quickly adapt to the transients and not like slew the material too well. Like, it's really good for running. Yeah, it's really good for like running percussive elements through, or like a breakbeat or something like that. It like kicks it up into a higher territory. I don't fully understand how it works. I don't fully understand how anything works behind the scenes with this module. It's not a vocoder per se, but it does vocoding like things, where like you can run anything through it and you're basically resynthesizing it, and you can balance the wet and dry where it needs to be. You can blur it, you can add feedback to it, you can take it up 2 octaves, down 2 octaves, you can focus the frequency of where like it should be focusing on to generate harmonic content. So you can like dial it in. Very versatile, way more versatile than most of the software was that I was using to do that specific type of duty. So far, I've only had like a couple nights with it, but I'm really digging it. And you can go in like the opposite direction too. Like, you can take a single like percussive sound and like blur it, feedback it, the whole 9 yards, and turn it into like a drone that you can then sequence into like melodies. It's a really crazy module. But yeah, having a lot of fun with it. It also falls in line with what I've been looking for lately in regards to like manglers that don't rely fully on distortion. You know what I mean? Like, I've been trying to use things like clouds and things like that to mangle sound without just distorting sound, to transform it into something else. And I feel like this nails it right on the head.
How many channels is it? Is it like full stereo in and out? Or
Full
does it
stereo.
have full stereo, yeah.
It has a couple different stereo modes, which I haven't really screwed around with too much. I've just been using it like the default. But yeah, it's versatile in that regard. And there's a couple key combo things you can do. I haven't even dipped into those yet. I've just been using like the bass mode on the Surface. The only key combo I've been doing is the one that puts it in the drum mode. Like, you have to hold a key, twist a knob, and it puts it in the drum mode. But yeah, everything aside from that type of stuff is all up front, very easy to dial in, just a lot of fun to play around with. It's kind of big for being a one-trick kind of pony, you know, for me.
Yeah.
But
Well, wait, how big is it? How many HP?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Let me look.
Yeah, most of the Rossum ones are pretty big.
26 HP.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
big.
sizable. But I like the fact that it has a lot of functionality that's up front, you know what I mean? So if all that was hidden behind the scenes and like, or like in a menu, I would probably not have bought it. To be honest. You know what I mean? I like the fact that there's no menu. I can see the main controls, tweak them as I need to, and even has like waveform select and things like that. It's pretty interesting. It's exactly what I wanted, like an old school method that I can reproduce now in the year 2020 in my modular. You know what I mean? Like, just mangling sounds, resynthesizing them from scratch, bringing something organic into the world of electronic.
So you like the overall sound quality of it so far?
I think it sounds great. Yeah, like the quality of the module itself, like even the feel of it, seems top notch. I see why people hold Rossum stuff in high esteem as far as quality goes. It just feels solid. It works. I haven't had any issues.
Where'd you get it from?
Thumbs up.
Did you get it used or
no? I got it new. I ordered it through Perfect Circuit. Took advantage of the Memorial Day sale.
Nice.
So, I mean, ultimately, do you think you're going to keep it?
Yeah, I think it's a keeper for sure.
Now, are you going to be able to make room for that 301 that you definitely have to get someday?
That's the thing, man. I have some big modules on the way too. Like I still have the Flux sequencer, not the Fluxus, the Flux.
Yeah.
That's a sizable module.
I mean, you had one of the biggest modules I've ever seen. What was that? Was it the defibrillator? That was
that was huge.
That was an enormous module.
Yeah, I've been trying to avoid big modules, but like between the Panharmonium, the Flux, and whatever sampler I end up getting,
the System 810 module is pretty big, and it's fucking really nice to use.
That's an entire voice, right?
Full voice, yeah.
Yeah, his whole thing was I'm going to design this so it's kind of like what a 5U modular feels like, and it's just I really dig that thing. It's sweet, but it's large.
You want to discuss that? I'm done singing the praises of Panharmonium.
Yeah, the System 80. It's kind of the last one on my list. Actually, was the 810 rather. So I saw I got tricked by Instagram in a good way, and that he was like, oh, these are done basically. Maybe in a year or two I'll make these again because of parts and COVID and everything. So it was like, all right, they're all out. And I saw oh, Detroit Modular has at least another few left, and so I got one. Fucking totally dig it. Had the Joe filter, which I've talked about before.
Well, I have that.
Yeah, you have my old Joe filter.
I fucking love that filter. It's fucking astounding.
It rules. I'm super glad to have this version back. The only thing it doesn't have is it's low pass only. So it's not the high pass or the band pass.
Do you get the 12 and the 24 at least?
Yes, okay, there is that. Yeah. It has that because that's pretty crucial. It sounds fucking incredible. The oscillator is what really surprises me because for an analog oscillator, which is after a number of years you're you're not going to get super surprised. It sounds really fucking quality and almost bug brand quality. I would say right up there actually. And even the naked oscillator sounds really satisfying, and I've been using it just as super dope electro sounds that really satisfied that itch. I was considering those fucking Behringer clone modules, and there's no way I'm getting those now because I'm totally satisfied for a System 100 clone in my modular and a nice analog bass. It fucking rules. And the VCA has enough, it's a mixer too. It's just really nicely featured. All the CV inputs are mixable and normaled. The real key, one of the best things about it is the sub oscillator actually. And you only get it normaled as an input into the filter. You can't patch it out, but half the time, even 90% of the time, I'd say I'm patching it with the sub oscillator sound because it makes it super fucking thick. And it also made me realize that SH01A, which I still really like and probably won't sell, but I don't think I would ever use it instead of just the 810 because it just fucking kills that bouncy analog, juicy, kind of 101 shit, but classic Roland, I fucking love it. It sounds killer, especially I mentioned earlier with the System X envelopes from Frequency Central. It's the two modulators you kind of want with that. The only thing I don't have is an LFO, but I've got plenty of other LFOs, so it's not even an issue. I don't give a fuck what the Roland LFOs sounded like, really. It's not what Roland was about to me. It's about the, audio path.
How many oscillators is it?
It's just one. Just one in the sub, so it's mono.
Sub. Okay.
Yeah, and you can kind of pick... wait, can you pick? Can't even remember right now, but it's got a nice... pulse width sound, gets you beautiful 242 kind of sounds.
Do you have any choices? Yeah. Do you have any options with the sub oscillator, or is it fixed?
No, I think it's fixed. I think it's just a fixed sine, maybe a triangle.
Okay.
But it's actually one of the first synths. Like, I generally hate sawtooth waves too, and I don't use them in music much. And this one I've been using, like, because it sounds really nice to me. Like, I never use it in the Virus and other synths. So yeah, you don't get much choice with the sub-os. You have to select your waveform that's coming out of the output. It's got a nice normaling scheme, so you don't have to like use many cables if you don't want to. And it's nice that you can inject like other. I'm sending a lot of wavetables through the filter and the VCA, for instance, and it sounds just as good as with the standard waveforms. So I'm super glad I got it. It's really, really good sounding. The tracking's awesome. Tuning's really nice. Oh yeah, one thing, I love the VCO. I wish every VCO I had was just like range selector for the octave, and then a tuning that clearly indicates where fucking 0 should be.
Yeah.
It's not something where I'm always like, is that where I should have it, to have it be at like a 0 or what? Because I never know.
I know IntelliGel added that to the Dixie,
Yeah.
the octave selector, and I was like, oh, I don't need that. And now I'm like, oh shit, I definitely would love to. Like, I've got one of the old Dixies, and I've always thought about like, man, I should get that one with the octave selector. That's such a nice addition.
I'm actually like anti-coarse tune knob now. I don't know why the fuck you would ever need it, because like, if you have a volt per octave input, just fucking hook up an offset. But for the most part, I just want an oscillator to be like, show me how to get it what you think in tune is, and then give me fucking octave switches, and I'm good.
I can't think of a negative thing we've said about the System 80 stuff that we've all tried over the years. Their stuff is top fucking notch.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of their stuff. Like, I want more of it personally.
I just I wanted to touch upon the Flux temporal modulation rhythm sequencer. I didn't have much to say. I just wanted to say that it's insane how well he's been updating the Kickstarter pages, or the Kickstarter page rather.
So he's still like adding features and stuff like that?
Like every week.
Wow.
Yeah. Like his last update was yesterday. He's 20 updates so far since the project completed.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's nuts. He's constantly tweaking it, showing like the parts that he got in stock. He tested a new display. He gave like in-depth analysis between the differences of the old display and the new one he's trying to shift it to. Like, just spot on communication with the backers and total transparency with what is going on behind the scenes.
Has he talked about any potential delays based on the pandemic and stuff that's going on with that?
Not. There's like no delays really expected. Like, he managed to get most of the parts in that he needed to get in. He's been using the time in between getting the parts to fine-tune firmware, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, it's just been pretty awesome.
This is his first Kickstarter, right?
Yeah, and he's really setting a high bar for any that might follow. Like, he's kicking ass, and just I'm very happy to have backed its project and not wait for for it to be in stores. Like, I'm glad I got to bear witness to this thing come to fruition, over time, just and be a part of all the feedback that he was taking from people. See those suggestions and critiques like it considered, and some actually ended up being implemented in real time. We get to see the results.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He just keeps finding ways to like refine the firmware already too. Like, but yeah, I didn't have a whole lot to say. I mean, obviously I don't have one yet. I can't say too much. I just wanted to give him give him a shout out for all the updates he's been doing.
When does it actually ship now?
It's still anticipated to be out in August.
Oh, cool.